Hi everyone and welcome. This is Jennifer Johnson from BlueCross BlueShield of Western New York. I am the Health Promotion Coordinator at BlueCross BlueShield that works mainly with our Medicare Advantage members, and today we're going to be talking about preventing dehydration. Let's start out with a definition of dehydration. Dehydration occurs when a person loses more water than they take in. We lose water throughout the day through a variety of different bodily functions, respiration, perspiration, as well as others. When we don't replace that water adequately, that's when dehydration can occur. It's a myth that we become dehydrated only by sweating profusely. So many people think that we become dehydrated only through very hot temperatures or by vigorous exercise or the occasional illness, but that isn't true. Dehydration can occur even at cool temperatures or even when you're not being active. I always like to tell people you can become dehydrated by sitting very still, even in an air-conditioned room. Water makes up about 70% of our body, so our tissues, muscles, organs, all of those body parts contain a great deal of fluid, and we need that fluid. It's crucial to a lot of our different bodily functions, like toxin removal. We remove toxins from our body through urination and bowel movements, and we need a lot of fluid in order to do that. Fluid is essential for delivering oxygen and nutrients to cells. Without fluid, oxygen and nutrients can't pass through our cell membranes. We need fluid for energy production, so taking the food that we are eating and turning it into energy that our body can use. We need fluid for joint lubrication. I like to think of water as sort of the WD-40 for our joints, to keep those moving along nicely, to keep the rust from gathering, if you will. We need fluid for muscle function. In fact, our muscles are one of the first places that we notice a lack of fluid. So we begin seeing things like muscle cramps, maybe a little muscle stiffness. And as dehydration becomes more pronounced, there is a noticeable change in our heart rhythm. So fluid is really essential for making sure that our heart is operating properly and being able to do the things that it needs to do to keep us alive and healthy. Symptoms of dehydration include dry lips, mouth, tongue, and skin. When we don't have enough fluid, we do feel dryness in various parts of our body. Muscle cramps, as I mentioned on the previous slide, are an early symptom of dehydration, and headaches as well are an early sign of dehydration. Decreased urine output is sort of self-explanatory. If we aren't taking in enough fluid, we won't be eliminating enough fluid. Constipation is certainly a symptom of dehydration. It requires a great deal of fluid in order to properly pass stool. And when we are dehydrated or we don't have enough fluid in our body, it makes it much more difficult for us to move that stool through our digestive system and out of our body. And then as dehydration becomes more severe, rapid heart rate, dizziness, low blood pressure become some very dangerous symptoms of dehydration. There's a very simple test that you can try at home to check to see if you're dehydrated. Hold out one hand in front of you, palm facing down. With your other hand, take your thumb and first finger and pinch the skin on the back of that hand. Hold that skin taut for about 10 seconds and then let it go. If your skin snaps back into place or moves quickly back into place, that's a sign that you're pretty well hydrated. If your skin sort of oozes slowly back to its original place, that's a sign of dehydration. So what causes dehydration? As you can see here, we have a list of various things that can cause dehydration, and we'll go through each of these over the next few slides. But we'll cover not consuming enough fluids, some types of illnesses, sweating and excessive heat, some types of medications, and then age-related changes. Not consuming enough fluids can lead to dehydration, but of course, that begs the question, how much fluid do we actually need every day? The Institutes of Medicine recommend 11 cups of liquid a day for women and 15 cups of liquid a day for men. Now, when we say 11 cups or 15 cups, we mean cups, literally 8 ounces of fluid in a cup. So 11 times or 15 times 8 ounces. That sounds like a lot of fluid, and it is. But that amount includes the liquids that we get from the foods that we eat. And we take in a lot of fluid from our food, or we should if we're eating a healthy diet. Fruits, vegetables, yogurt, soup, all contain a great deal of fluid. And if the bulk of our diet is coming from plants, as it should, then we're probably taking in plenty of fluid from our food. In addition to the foods that we consume, that old rule about 8 glasses of water a day is a pretty good one for most people. 8 glasses of water, again talking about cups or 8-ounce increments, 8 cups of 8 ounces of fluid every day is 64 ounces. 64 ounces is a pretty manageable goal for most people, and for most people, that's a pretty decent amount. Try to make sure that you're including a lot of fruits and vegetables in your diet so that you're getting a lot of fluid from those sources. Cooked grains are another good source of fluid. You think about cooking a pot of rice, you add dry rice to a pot of water. When you're done cooking it, the water is gone. Some of it evaporates, but most of it goes into the rice. So when you eat the rice, you're taking in that fluid. So cooked grains are a good option too for a fluid-rich diet. And then again, foods like yogurt, soup, milk, all of those are really good sources of fluid. Caffeine and alcohol are okay in moderation. If you drink a few cups of coffee or tea or a beer or a glass of wine every day, those drinks are still mostly fluid. So they do contribute to your overall fluid intake. But remember that once we get away from moderate levels of caffeine and alcohol, those types of drinks tend to have a diuretic effect on us, meaning they're going to make us go to the bathroom more frequently. So ultimately, we'll lose more fluid than we're taking in. Small amounts of caffeine and alcohol are perfectly okay in moderation, but make sure that you're also consuming other sources of fluid. One other good way to check your hydration levels is by checking the color of your urine. What we're looking for in urine is a pale yellow color, sort of the color of lemonade or maybe straw. Anything darker than that is an indication that you're not getting enough fluid. Some people have the idea that fluid needs to be clear in order for them to be well hydrated, and that is not true. Urine that is clear or very, very pale is a sign that someone may actually be overhydrated. So aiming for that pale yellow color is a good idea. And last but not least, even if you have bladder problems, it's still essential to drink throughout the day. Sometimes people who have bladder problems, who are concerned about having to rush to the bathroom, cut back on fluid because they don't want to be rushing to the bathroom or having bathroom accidents. But it's really important that we're still drinking throughout the day. Our urinary system requires a certain amount of fluid to pass through it every day in order to flush out the system, flush away any excess bacteria that could be hanging out that could lead to urinary tract infections. So we do want to make sure that we're drinking throughout the day. Regular fluid intake is also really important for helping to prevent constipation. So even if you're a person with bladder issues, you do need to drink throughout the day. It's okay to stop fluids a few hours before bedtime if you don't want to be getting up during the night to go to the bathroom. But other than that, you should be drinking throughout the day. It takes about 3 hours for everything that we drink to pass through our system. So stopping fluids 3 hours before bedtime is okay, but otherwise do make an effort to sip throughout the day. Illnesses that involve repeated vomiting, diarrhea, or fever can cause us to lose a lot of fluid all at once. And this can cause acute dehydration rather than the chronic dehydration that we were talking about in the previous slide. If you're going through a stomach bug or any type of illness that involves a fever, you might be losing a lot of fluid through vomiting, diarrhea, sweating, or any combination of those things. It's important to make sure that you're continuing to drink fluids during your illness. Even small quantities can help. So if you are vomiting, you can't really keep any food down, but you can keep down tiny sips of water or juice. Those tiny sips ultimately can add up to make a big difference. Acute dehydration sometimes needs to be treated in a hospital setting. So if you are experiencing symptoms like that for 24 hours or longer, it's really important to be in touch with your doctor to find out how they want you to continue to treat that illness. Sweating can also cause dehydration. Our body uses water in the form of sweat to cool itself from excess heat, activity, or fever. When we're too hot, our body moves fluid to the surface of our skin. That fluid evaporates into the air, and that process of evaporation helps us to feel cooler. Think of sweating as your body's built-in air conditioning system. We do lose a significant amount of water through sweating. Depending on the weather, even exercise like a brisk walk can generate as much as 16 ounces of sweat per hour. 16 ounces is a pint, just to put that in perspective. It's important that we replace this water during exercise or during sweating to prevent dehydration. Carry water with you when you exercise and drink frequently. If you sweat heavily or exercise for longer than an hour or in hot weather, consider a sports drink or sports gel to replace electrolytes. You may have heard that word before, but not be exactly sure what it means. Some of our body's water supply is inside our cells, and some of it is outside. Our cells don't pump the water across our cell membranes. It can slip across freely. But our cells can pump minerals across the membranes, and those minerals take the water with them. This is how our cells maintain the proper water balance. The minerals that our body uses for this purpose are called electrolytes. When we sweat, we lose electrolytes as well as fluid. Sports drinks or sports gels help to replace them. If you have high blood pressure, ask your doctor before using sports drinks or gels because they do contain sodium. Now, they're usually okay for most people because you're replacing the sodium that you're losing through sweating. But if you have high blood pressure or hypertension, just give that double check with your doctor before you use them. Excessive heat is another common cause of dehydration. Heat-related illnesses are very common, especially as we get older. The body normally cools itself by sweating, but sweating isn't always enough. As we get older, it's harder for the body to regulate temperature. When we don't sweat properly, body temperature can become dangerously high very quickly. Humidity makes the situation worse because it's harder for sweat to evaporate in a humid atmosphere. Again, when we sweat, our body moves fluid to the surface of our skin, the fluid evaporates, and we feel cooler. But on a humid day, when the air is already very saturated with water, there's no place for that fluid on the surface of our skin to go. And so it sits on the surface of our skin or absorbs into our clothing, and we feel hot and sticky. During hot weather, make sure you drink regularly, even if you aren't thirsty. Thirst isn't always a good indicator of our hydration levels. Try to avoid alcohol and caffeine. Remember that alcohol and caffeine have diuretic effects. In very hot, humid weather, we don't want to lose any fluid unnecessarily. Try to stay in an air-conditioned environment. If your home is not air-conditioned, visit public places that are, like the senior center, library, mall, or other air-conditioned buildings. When you're at home, take cool baths and showers, and use cold cloths to stay cool. Some medications can also cause dehydration. Some medications have a diuretic effect, like blood pressure medications. Blood pressure medications frequently act as a diuretic, relieving the body of some of the excess water that it contains, which makes it easier for the heart to pump blood. Antihistamines, like you'd take for allergy season, act to dry out various tissues in the body. And some antipsychotic medications also have a diuretic effect. Laxatives can cause water loss, especially when used to excess. If you find yourself reaching for laxatives on a regular basis, it's really important to talk to your doctor. That isn't something that we should be using regularly. Other medications, such as those for diabetes, thyroid conditions, high blood pressure, and depression, can also cause increased sweating or flushing, which can also cause us to lose water. It's important whenever you start taking any new medication to read all of the possible side effects and notify your doctor or your pharmacist if you're experiencing any of those, particularly if they're interfering with your life. Age-related changes can also lead to dehydration. As we get older, our thirst reflex isn't as acute, so we may not drink as much. Our brain simply doesn't get the signal that we're thirsty. Also, our kidney function becomes less precise as we get older. That means our kidneys are less able to conserve fluid. Those changes start around age 50. Medication changes can also be an issue. As we get older, we're more likely to take some of the medications that can lead to dehydration, like blood pressure medications. Changes in diet can also be a factor. As we get older, we tend to live alone more frequently, and adults who live alone may be less likely to cook meals for themselves, or less likely to purchase things like fruits and vegetables that may go bad before they can be used. Sometimes, changes to the taste buds also mean that foods don't taste as good, and so maybe people don't eat as many of those fluid-rich foods. Bladder control can also be an issue. We talked about that previously. If a person is drinking less frequently because they're concerned about bathroom problems, that can certainly be a factor that can lead to dehydration. Mobility and balance issues can also be a problem. If a person has issues with balance or mobility, it can prevent drinking regularly. Getting up to get a drink can be difficult, or carrying a glass of water while walking can be difficult also. For people who have Medicare, dehydration is one of the 10 most common causes of hospital admissions. So as we get older, it's very important that we're taking steps to prevent dehydration. What are some ways that we can prevent dehydration? Here's some easy tips. Drink 1 glass of water first thing each morning. So as soon as you get up, you go into the bathroom, you brush your teeth, you fill up your little cup that you use for brushing your teeth, fill it up to the top, drink it right down. That way, before you've done anything else throughout the day, you've already gotten in 1 glass of water. Measure out 8 cups of water into a pitcher each morning and drink it throughout the day. Keep it in the refrigerator if you prefer your water to be cold. Keep it on the counter if you prefer it to be more room temperature. But when you fill up that pitcher every morning, you know that when it's gone, you've gotten in your 8 cups for the day. Keep a glass of water or a bottle of water next to your bed or chair. It makes it a little bit easier to not have to carry it around, particularly for people with balance or mobility issues. Pick up a fun water bottle to carry with you. If you walk or you do yard work, Carrying a water bottle with you can be a great way to remember to sip throughout the day. There's so many different options available for water bottles now. Look for one online if you can't get out to the store right now, but there's so many different options, whatever you like, aluminum, glass, plastic, whatever you prefer, it's out there. If you're an outdoor exerciser or even a gardener or you do a lot of yard work, consider some sort of method for carrying water with you that doesn't involve your hands. There's a lot of water devices like water belts or water bottles that strap to your hand that you can use that don't impair your ability to use your hands. I'll show you some pictures of what those will look like. For people who say that they don't like how their water tastes, that's a common complaint that I hear, add something to your water to make it taste better to you. Lemon, lime, those are pretty classic, but you could also add berries, cucumber, even a splash of fruit juice to give your water a little bit of flavor. Remember to add more fruits and veggies to your diet. Those are naturally fluid rich, and the more fruits and veggies we're consuming, the more fluid we'll be taking in. And consider soup for lunch or for dinner. If you're using canned soups or boxed soups, look for low sodium varieties, or if you're making your own, use low sodium broth or stock to make your soups. Just a few images on this slide here for you to look at, ways to carry water along with you throughout the day. In the top left, you see just a wide variety of water bottles that are available these days. Metal, plastic, glass, anything that you like is available, different colors, different patterns. Some water bottles even have little fabric loops or metal loops that are attached to the bottles that you can use to carry along or to hang on a hook. In the top right corner of the screen, this is a handheld water device. So it's a small water bottle that sits comfortably in the palm of your hand, and it's attached to a strap that goes around the back of your hand. Looks uncomfortable. They're very ergonomic. I've used them myself for many years for running outdoors. They're very comfortable, very easy to use. The strap that goes around your hand also usually has a little zipper pouch, like the one you can see here, that you can carry your keys or anything else that you might need. And then in the bottom of the screen, this is a water belt. So a water belt is a strap that goes around your waist, sort of like a fanny pack, and it usually does have a little zipper or button compartment that you can carry keys, phone, tissues, whatever you might need with you. And then a water belt comes with 1, maybe 2, maybe 3 small water bottles that tuck in to the strap that goes around your waist, and it's a nice hands-free way to carry water with you if you're walking, hiking, working outdoors, even biking. These are all great ways to carry water with you. Infused water can be another great way to get your 8 glasses of water throughout the day, especially if you're a person who doesn't really like drinking water or you don't like the way your water at home tastes. You can make infused water by filling a pitcher or a glass with fruit, herbs, or spices and covering with fresh water. If you're using herbs and spices, you do want to crush them into small pieces to release their oils. If you're using herbs, you can even rub the leaves between your fingers, and that will help them release their oils as well. For fruit, slice or cube it into small, similar-sized pieces before covering with water. Soft fruits like berries and cucumber flavor water quickly, but hard fruits like apples or pears need an overnight soak before they begin to give up any of their flavor. If you're using citrus like lemon, lime, orange, remove it after a few hours because the pith, the white part of the citrus peel, begins to turn water bitter after a few hours. You don't want that in there. You can also remove any mushy looking fruit after a few hours, particularly if you'll be serving your infused water. you can replace the mushy looking fruit and the used up citrus with fresh fruit right before serving for aesthetics. Here are some ideas of flavor combinations that you can try for infused water. Cucumber and mint is wonderful. Orange, blueberry, and basil. Strawberry and lime. Watermelon, honeydew, and mint. Cantaloupe is nice in there also. Orange and cranberry, which is a beautiful color combination. Cranberry is another good example of a fruit that benefits from an overnight soak. Otherwise, it's going to give you a lot of color, but not a whole lot of flavor. And lemon and thyme are also nice. When it comes to infused water, think of flavor combinations you like in other recipes and try to make your own. There's no wrong way to make infused water. You can see in this image here, this water bottle is pretty interesting. Some water bottles have a small center cylinder that you can pack with fruit or herbs to flavor the water in the bottle. So you can make your own infused water in your bottle and carry it with you wherever you go also. Last but certainly not least, I also like to spend a few minutes on what's the difference between seltzer, club soda, and sparkling water. They're all so popular right now, and you may wonder, what's the difference between those three products? Well, the difference is in the size of the bubbles, believe it or not. Club soda is plain water that has had carbonation pumped into it. Manufacturers also add minerals and dissolved sodium solids, which are what give it that characteristic, slightly bitter taste. Club soda does contain sodium, right? Any product that has soda in its name contains some amount of sodium. So if you have high blood pressure or you're on a low sodium diet, you may want to avoid club soda, but you do have other options. Seltzer and sparkling water are plain water with added carbonation. The difference between seltzer and sparkling water is in the size of the bubbles. Sparkling water tends to have larger bubbles, while seltzer has smaller bubbles, and that's really the only difference. Sparkling mineral water, on the other hand, is water that comes from a natural spring or a well. It's naturally carbonated. Now, sometimes manufacturers enhance those carbonation levels, but sparkling mineral water contains at least some of its own natural carbonation with naturally occurring minerals. One really common brand is Pellegrino. There's many other brands out there. Unless you're really looking for those naturally occurring minerals or you like the flavor better, seltzer, sparkling water, sparkling mineral water are all interchangeable, and there's so many different flavor options now, most of which have no sugar added, have no calories, so they're really a great calorie-free drink choice. So seltzer, club soda, sparkling water, all virtually the same. Club soda has that characteristically bitter taste, and then seltzer, sparkling water, sparkling mineral water all frequently have flavors added, or you can buy plain varieties as well. They're all good options for helping you stay hydrated if you prefer them to regular still water or tap water. Thank you everyone for joining me today. I do have one handout for you called The Importance of Hydration, which is kind of a summary of many of the things that we talked about today. If you're a member of BlueCross BlueShield of Western New York, there is also a phone number on that handout for our healthcare services team, which is a group of nurses, dietitians that you can work with over the phone who can answer questions for you about health and wellness or work with you on managing chronic conditions. So that phone number is available to you if you have any further questions about staying hydrated or about good nutrition to help you do that. Again, thank you so much for being with me today. I hope you're all well, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you. Take care.